Welcome, everybody, to this week's issue of How Cool Is That? Today, we are fortunate to have one of our most esteemed colleagues, Professor Corinne Graves, here to talk about the Liquid Syllabus. Welcome, Corinne. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing terrific. I know we were talking before we got started about, I appreciated your comments earlier about my lovely new office. For those that don't know it, this is the new DTC remodel. Just everybody, we don't spread this around a lot, and understand that this is just a casual office. Suniti has the big corner office. So just to let you know. So before we get started, I'm going to ask you to talk about your background. But your husband this week, is he lecturing at MIT again? No, is that off?
No, they kicked him right out and sent him back to Virginia.
They sent him back to Virginia. Okay, this week I'm on a panel at Stanford, but it's just a panel. It's not a presentation. Not a big deal. Okay, if you could tell us a little bit about what you teach and your background.
Okay, I teach sociology. So I teach sociology, social problems, and race and ethnicity. I am a native of Virginia, graduate of the University of Virginia, for all of you Hokies out there, wahoo wah. And I graduated with a degree in archaeology and worked as an archaeologist for a few years in Florida. And then it was not a tough job at all. And after that, I decided to move from studying dead people to alive people, and went back to school and got the sociology degree. And I'm about 25 years teaching sociology, about a decade at Germanna. But I really like to focus on social problems and inequalities and all of these things that we talk about with our friends or on Twitter, and then we really can sit down and study them and come up with solutions. So that's a little about me.
Fascinating. So 25 years. You started when you were 12, correct?
I did. I started actually as a toddler.
Very good. Okay, I just wanted to
preschool subject.
So sociology, you've been about a decade here at Germanna?
Yes, it is. It's wonderful.
Tell us about. I've heard this used before, and you were describing it to me before we came on camera, a liquid syllabus. Before you talk about what that is, start with, what was the issue that you saw that got you looking for some type of solution?
So we know that students do better in the class if they feel like they belong in the class. I like to look for ideas for belongingness. How do you make sure that students are connected to you and connected to the subject matter and feel like they belong in the class? So, I really wanted to, as we're looking at issues about diversity and inclusion and equity, we want to make sure that all of our students are belonging. And so I started to kind of search the world to see how we could do that, especially as we are moving to a lot more online classes. So this started before the pandemic, but as
hard to remember that, isn't it?
It is. The before times is what I call it. So in the before times, but we were just starting to create 5-week courses, and you don't have the 2 or 3 weeks to get students to have the buy-in. You need them to jump into the class already feeling like it's their class. So as I started to look, I came across the idea of this liquid syllabus that would be something students, ideally, they would have it when they first started thinking about taking a class, when they first started looking for classes, that they would be able to right away have that belongingness and that buy-in.
So, and you're saying it's more of an issue, certainly in an asynchronous class, but exacerbated by 5-week or 7-week asynchronous classes. It's worse, right?
Yeah. I think all of us, in an online world, we already are trying to make sure we're connecting to students, that students see us as people, that they know that we see them as people. I think we've always had that, trying to connect with students in these asynchronous online classes. But then, we used to give ourselves a couple of weeks. And I remember when I first started teaching online classes, we would be like, oh, you know what, give them 2 or 3 weeks and they'll get it. And that was fine with a 15-week course. But when you have a 5-week course, I can't give them 3 weeks, because by the time they feel like they've connected, they've already fallen behind. They've already missed opportunities to talk to me. If students don't see us as human and see us as caring, then they're not going to reach out to us. They're not going to bring problems to us. And by the time it comes, it's going to be too late. So it was really, the impetus behind this was, how can I make sure that I'm increasing that belongingness, that all of the students, especially students who, might be new to the online world, or might be new to college, might not have a college experience, how can they right away know that this is the place for them?
might not have a college experience or might not have a recent one.
Yes, yes. Or had
Very
a
good.
bad experience somewhere else. I want them to know, hey, this is going to be good. It's going to be fine. And you deserve to be here.
Excellent. Describe what it is, what the Liquid Syllabus is.
So on the very basis, it's a Google site. So it's a website. And I like the Google site because it's really made to operate on a phone. The Google site is designed to be used on a mobile device. So I wanted to give students something, meet them where they are is what we say, right? But I wanted them to use what they already have in their hand. And that they're looking for classes and they're trying to take classes on their phone. So why don't we just do it on their phone? So that's why I chose Google site versus some of the other ones. Plus it's easy and I'm not a web designer and I needed something that I don't know how to write code. So I had to do something that was made for me.
Plus, if you're saying it helps students find your class, you're a marketer. That's what you're doing. There you go.
That's my next goal. I'll leave sociology. Marketing.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's the basis. It's a Google site, and the very basis of a Liquid Syllabus is that you're putting out there. I always say the stuff that students want to know on day one about the class. So I have people don't know what sociology is. Most people come here thinking it's like psychology or something. So I tell them this is what sociology is. And I have links in there to all of the different classes, to social problems and race and ethnicity, that this is what the class is about. So it's really this is the class description, but then I also put the major assessments in there, right? It tells you if the class has a final exam or an essay exam. I put my projects in there. So it's not like dates and numbers. I don't, that stuff is not there, but it is the idea that if you are interested in taking a sociology course, you can see what they're about. You can see what is included, what you're going to have to do in the class. I put my late policy there because, students want to know if you accept things late. That's in there. I put the basic ideas of how many credits is this and what does it count? These are a social sciences course. So students have that information when they go into it. And then all my classes are OER. So I actually have the textbook embedded there. So they can even go in and see the book and go through the book. So, the idea is that when they first start thinking about the class, they can see what it's about. They can dip their toes in it. They can see if it fits for them.
Sure.
And then I have all my stuff in there. So this is where I really want to connect with them. I have a lot more than you could fit into a traditional syllabus. I have my background. I have photos of me and my dogs and my garden. And then
I've met the dogs. Well, I met them virtually, yes.
Everyone who's been in Zoom has met the dogs.
You mentioned something interesting about timing. Tell us about when you open this. Do you open this when the course opens up?
It is 24/7, 365 or 366 on leap years. It is always out there. The one problem with the Google syllabus is it is hard to find. The Google sites are a little hard to find the Google sites, but if you can find it or if you have the link. And so with this link, I send it every time a advisor or a counselor says, hey, I have a student thinking about your class. I just give them the link to my Google site so they can open it up. I share it. It's on all of my contact information. It's in my, my email. I can, when students write to me, I had a student the other day wrote me and said, hey, I'm in your class in the fall. Can you tell me what book we're using? And I can actually say, I can better than that. I can show you the entire class. So it's always available.
How can the students interact with one another via that, or how does that work?
So there's a contact form on it that they can interact with me, but they can't really interact with each other. So it's more just them going in and exploring. So if they have, I have my contact information, but there's also a little contact like question form, like a website, as if you were buying something from me. So they can also get to me that way, but it's really just them looking onto there. It should answer, I have a section in there about one of my pages in my site is careers in sociology. And so I have stories about that. I have ways for them to link to other resources. So if they're interested in there, so they can interact with people outside of it through like major platforms or resources into that world. And then I have in there a resources page. And so that allows them,
fostering an interest in the course material.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and the resources, they can interact with like APA and all that kind of boring stuff that they have to do. But also I say, do you need a laptop? Click this link and you go to the library. Do you need help tutoring? Click this link and go to tutoring. Do you need, are you struggling with something? And they can click the link and go right to our counseling service. So they can interact in that way directly with the different Germanna services. And I think that helps. Students don't always know what we have available, and it lets them go right there.
I find that a lot. They don't know. Tell us about the benefits of this. How has it worked, and what are some of the things that have come out of this?
I have all of these links in there, and I have the basic syllabus that I want them to connect to before class, but then I do have the page of resources throughout the class. I have the pages of linking to these other things. And those are really useful because students have that at their fingertips. And again, it's made for the phone. And it's something that I put in there. It's in my announcements. It's the very top of my modules and start here and all of that. But also if I can just give that to students as a way to solve kind of all of the issues at one time, right? If a student is struggling on a paper, I'm like, hey, why don't you have this? I have a section on there called How to Read in College that tells them how to skim, right? Because we don't teach people how to do that. But it also links them to tutoring, and it links them to counseling. So they have that without having to be specific and without having to ask, and without me having to pry into exactly what are you, because when a student's struggling, they don't often know why they're struggling. So if you can give them something where they can just click a bunch of links, we're really good at clicking links. In my evaluations and my course reviews, I've had so many students, over a dozen students, talk about the fact that they've used that to see that, and they've specifically said, hey, she told us, because it starts with belongingness, and it says, you belong here at Germanna, you belong here in this course, saying, she told us she belongs, and that was really important to me. Or, she gave us a website that could get me to all of the stuff I needed in Germanna, and that was really helpful. So students are using it, I think, throughout the course, and they're doing it. So I think it covers a lot of those unknowns.
It covers a lot of ground. First of all, you can use it all year, so you're not restricted to when the course is open, which could be great background for people. You're giving them a lot more because it's uses from semester to semester. You can put a lot more information in there, right? Than
Yes.
you would in a Canvas shell. But it sounds like one of the hidden benefits of this has been mobility on the phone.
Absolutely. I think that's key, because they have it, and I have them in class, when they ask for something, I'm like, if you need an APA thing, if you go right to my website, you can do it. And they have that in there. So they don't ever have to get on a laptop. They can do everything from their phone. They can answer all those questions. And that's huge, because we're meeting students where they are, right? They're on their phones. We need to get them. And the Google sites are really designed to be on a phone. So it really makes it's a fluid experience. It's a nice, clean experience. You've got, it's links. Students love clicking on links, so they can just click on it without having to know where they're going to go. And it's fun things like I have a page in the back, which is what I'm reading. And I just put books that I'm reading in there, and I'll have students come to class and they're like, hey, I saw that you're reading this book. And it's usually like my mom's reading the book, but that's okay. But it shows me that just by having it in their hand and making it this kind of natural experience for them, instead of saying you have to go to Canvas and go to the website and go through all of that, I think it just makes it, it's a lot easier. They feel a lot more ownership.
It makes you a real person.
It makes me a real person.
Wonderful. Well, that's good. Last question I'll ask you. What have you learned from this? Advice would you give somebody else that was thinking about it?
So this is the first ever website thing I've ever done. Again, I am not in ISS. It was really easy to begin it. Like it was, it's made, Google is made, I think, for people that don't know how to do it. It's all drop-down menus. But I think the biggest lessons kind of learned are the fact that when you first are designing it, I had to keep in mind that it was made for a phone. So I had to go to my phone to see how it would look and make sure that, my images fit, the text fit. So the first time I made it, it was all pretty on my computer. And then I opened up my phone. And it was like 15 pages of words. Like you really have to cut the verbiage down. So I have a lot of links with different words, but I may be a little talkative, and I may drone on, and I can't do that there, because no one's going to scroll through 20 pages of about me. So a lot of it was in the beginning. I just had to do that. And then the other thing is this is fun. And I spend a lot of time changing things and updating things and putting in new pictures. And as I do it, I'm constantly kind of polishing it and trying to see what do students want. I used to, for example, just have the kinds of courses in there, and I would say social problems. And I've changed that to be the actual number of the course, because I feel like students, I would say to go there and learn about the course. And they're like, well, which one is it? So now I'm like, oh, you can just go to 268. So it's just an updating and polishing. And when I hear students looking for something, I go ahead and add it to that.
So you can grow it over time. Great learning. Well, Corinne, I can't thank you enough. This has been very helpful. This is yet another tool in our toolbox that we can use. So with that said, I appreciate your time, and to all those watching, we'll see you next time on How Cool Is That?